podcast fans. Do you like scary movies? Well, I hope so, because we're looking at one of the definitive scary movie sequels this week on the podcast. Welcome back to our first official silver screen of 2026. I am Old Reliable, your regular host, Mike Wilson. And this week, if you haven't gathered by the thumbnail and things, we're going to be looking at the movie Scream 2 for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to tie in with the release around about the time you'll be catching this going live of Scream 7. A film I'm not overjoyed about the controversy surrounding, but I'm still excited to see because of the presence, of course, of Neve Campbell returning and Kevin Williamson as director as well as writer. So intriguing enough to get me in, get my ass in the seat, as it were, watching it. And yeah, so that was part of the reason. And also, this is serving as the soft launch of what we're calling sequel season on the podcast. It's a weird one because to tie in with the release of Scream 7, this will be the first episode of it. And then we've got a few months break before we jump into the other sequels. But this, like I said, is kind of a soft launch. It's an attempt to see how we do. And that's why we're looking at Scream 2 specifically. But if you did want to see our review of Scream, the 1996 original, or Scream 5, otherwise also known as Scream, because reasons, they're both on the podcast and will be linked. But without any further ado, though, I can't do this on my own. So it's just time for me to introduce my great guests who will be trying to crack the case of the Windsor College murders with me today. So, first of all, returnee guest, you will have heard him a few times on the podcast, and he is new to this film. So please welcome Toby. Welcome back.
Hi, I'm glad to be back again.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to see you. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions on this film. Well, I think I am. We'll see how it goes. And certainly hearing your fresh perspective. And new guest for a first time guest on the podcast here. Please welcome Kevin as well. Welcome.
Hey, Mike and Toby.
So
thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here today. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite franchises with y'all.
Movie?
Awesome. One of my favorite franchises as well. I should clarify, not Kevin Williamson, the writer, unfortunately.
I'm sorry to let y'all down.
And I am not Mickey, the spoiler alert killer, but, I am a film nerd and slightly annoying at times. So, yeah, that's understandable if you make that mistake. So, yeah, looking forward to discussing it with you guys. And Kevin, welcome to the podcast for the very first time. Did you have anything you wanted to introduce to? You mentioned you had a podcast of your own.
Yeah, sure. So shout out to your other friend, Michael, who graciously set this up for us and got us in touch. He's a great dude, and I'm happy that we were able to connect through him. But yeah, my name's Kevin, and I am the creator and one of the co-hosts of a horror podcast called the Midnight Terrors Podcast. We're based out of Charleston, South Carolina in America. We've been going for almost 4 years now, just talking about different horror movies and forms of horror media on the show constantly, and doing live shows and everything. And we just love to celebrate the genre in any way we can. So it's always nice to connect with fellow horror fans like yourselves.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll leave all the links, of course, to that will be in the episode descriptions, as always, to your podcast. And thanks for having this little sort of mini crossover situation going on with us. So, yeah, looking forward to hearing your opinions from a sort of horror fan's perspective.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem at all. And before we jump into kind of, as we always do, our kind of behind the scenes and a little bit of information about this film, I'm going to start, as I like to, with going around and kind of, I normally ask what would be, can you remember the first time you saw the film and what were your first impressions? Obviously, in your case, Toby, that's slightly redundant since we know you watched it for the first time yesterday. So, I mean, did you want to give any of your initial impressions, or were you just caught up in the kind of trying to figure out the murderer part of it?
I mean, I can give my first impression of the first Scream one instead.
Yeah, sure, if you like it.
Because I went going into this movie because I thought the first Scream one was excellent. I gave it 5 out of 5. I loved it so much. So I went into it with expectations that we'll see if they were met.
Okay, cool. And so obviously, Kevin, you've seen this film before, probably when it came out, but along with myself, I'm not sure if you're quite as old as this old man, but do you remember the first time you saw Scream 2 and what you thought of it?
I think so. So funny story. So I was born in 1992. Okay. So when the first Scream came out, I was very young, but my first memory of seeing anything horror related was actually probably my sisters or somebody having Scream on the television as the infamous Drew Barrymore scene was going on. And I remember running out of the room when he says, "Your call," and threw the chair through the window. So Scream was kind of how I found horror in general. But I saw Scream 1 when I got to probably like middle school or high school, maybe when I was like 13 or 14 or maybe 15 or something. So I think right around there, probably when I was 14 or 15 is when I got my hands on I think it was like a 3-pack of Scream 1, 2, and 3. And I watched the first 3, pretty much back to back. So right around high school, like prime getting into horror mode is when I saw Scream 2. And haven't revisited this one as much as the rest of the franchise, but I've seen it at least a couple times since then.
Okay, cool. And obviously we'll get your thoughts as we kind of progress and start talking about and reviewing the film. So, but did you have an initial kind of impression coming out of it? What that you'd like to share with us that's not too spoilery?
Yeah, sure. I remember, obviously kind of similar to Toby riding the high of Scream 1 and just being so jazzed that there was more to dive into. Initial reactions, I've always kind of held this as one of my because I love all the Scream movies, but I've always kind of held this one as the bottom of the list for me, not because it's bad, but because it's more so just the one I've gone back to the least and gripped me the least. So this is kind of a rediscovery to see if it still maintains that spot. But I remember liking it, not quite as much as the first one, but still liking how it built upon what was set up by the first film. So
okay, cool. I won't get into what my actual bottom film is, but it's not this one. But I do have a least favorite of the 6 existing Scream films.
All right.
And yeah, I should say before we go any further, by the way, obviously we will be dealing with spoilers for Scream 96 and Scream 2 in this podcast. I'm going to avoid spoilers for Scream 3 through 6 because Toby hasn't seen them. So don't worry if you haven't seen those. We're not going to spoil those ones in any future parts of the franchise. And obviously I haven't seen Scream 7 yet, so we can't spoil that. But we'll see. Hopefully the filmmakers haven't spoiled it for us, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, my first experience, I vividly remember Scream 1 and 2 actually, because I was, I would say young, but as I was saying off air to Kevin, not that young. I was about 14 or 15, but I was always a huge wuss when it came to horror movies, even though I was kind of getting more and more into film from the age of about 9 or 10. I tried horror movies and was terrified. I remember watching like the original TV miniseries of It and Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, and I was just too young and hated them and became terrified and couldn't sleep for a week after, seeing Freddy Krueger tongue kiss somebody down a phone and stuff. That was a little bit too freaky for me as a kid. But Scream was the first time that I saw a horror movie that I really connected with on the kind of film nerd level. And I don't know if it was because I liked the sort of postmodern aspect of it, or the sort of the whip smart dialogue, or the kind of youth culture aspect, or like I said, just the commenting on movies that are part of it, or the fact that like it's not frankly all that scary, which is always a relief. I mean, if you are scared, fair enough, but for me I found it quite relatively tame. And I've kind of always said about the Scream movies that unlike a lot of other slashers, I enjoy the mystery as much as anything else. It's almost like an Agatha Christie whodunit disguised as a slasher, because you're not talking about an indestructible monster that, it's Michael Myers and he can't be killed coming after you and whatever. It's always humans. They're fallible, even though there's sly references about, they always come back. And you can work out who they are. And, there's a nice aspect to that I think I would say, at least in my experience, is fairly unique to slasher movies. I don't remember them ever doing that kind of last-minute Scooby-Doo style reveal before. So, yeah, I liked kind of all of that. And so because I loved Scream so much, I didn't see it at the cinema, I should say. The first Scream, I saw it on video, which I could remember just staying one night with a VHS, and again watching that Drew Barrymore scene when she's talking about I'm settling down with a video and making popcorn and everything. And I think I was doing something similar. I was having snacks and watching on an old VHS back in the day. So I didn't see Scream 2 in the cinema either, but I got it as soon as it came out on video off the back of liking Scream. And I remember thinking that it was amazing that it wasn't a huge step down, because I kind of had the worry of, can a sequel live up to it? And I thought at the time, and I think still kind of do, that it's quite a strong sequel. It doesn't really have a tail off and jump the shark in the way that some things do. And I loved a lot of the things that it gets into that, again, we'll talk about, but things like the introduction of the movie within a movie, or commenting on the events again, making it, again, very meta. I like the way that it kept on doing that. And yeah, I mean, obviously I love the franchise, so I'd grown to kind of like the characters by that point. Although, controversial decision to kill one of them off that I'm sure we'll get into and stuff. So, yeah, I remember really liking it, but I don't know why. I think I just didn't go to the cinema much when I was super young because there wasn't really one close by. But I do remember the first Scream I saw in cinema was Scream 3. Which I went to see in full Scream costume at that point with my friend John, but that's a story for another time. And I do. I vividly remember watching Scream 2 on video though with my friend Stephen Brown, who's been on the podcast a few times, and I remember us both trying to work out who the killers were, and him thinking he was super clever, and he was convinced throughout the film that Gail Weathers was the killer, and it's almost leading you that way, I think, a little bit at times. And I have this really vivid memory of the end of the movie when Mickey's like, I couldn't do this on my own, introducing my partner, and Gail walks through and the door closes behind her, and I was having none of it that it was Gail that was the killer, and him jumping up and going like, yes, I told you. And then like a second later the door opens again and Mrs. Loomis is behind her, and I was like, ah, celebrated too soon. I told you it was never going to be Gail. So it was weird core memory unlocked on that one that I've never forgotten. So I
didn't suspect Gail 1 second.
Really?
He was not a suspect for me.
I was going to ask, did you have anybody, with it being the first time you watched it, did you have anybody in mind that you thought you might be suspicious and you thought the killer might be? And how close were you, Toby, to figuring it out?
Well, we have two, as we know. The first one, Mickey, I when it was reviewed, I was like, wait, who is that? Wait a minute. Which character?
Timothy Oliphant, man.
I completely forgot the character even existed. And I keep trying to think where he appeared in the movie, and I was like, are we sure he appeared in the movie?
He's definitely there. He's in the film class at the start, and he hangs out with you. Even Randy name checks him as a suspect, but then says like, "Oh, but if he's a suspect, I am." So we'll kind of move on from that.
And I was suspicious of Debbie for the main reason was that she kept coming back into the story for no reason. What? And not only that, but they cast Laurie Metcalf as this random woman who keeps coming back into the screen for no reason. I was like, there has to be something.
Yeah, I think I remember thinking that it was just a sort of stunt casting type thing, because they did that in the first one. Like Linda Blair from The Exorcist appears as a background reporter for no good reason. She's just there in one scene. And I was like, that's Linda Blair.
I thought that as well. If it was only one scene, then I would have said, okay, she was just around or something. And they just got her for a day or something. But she kept coming back like 3 times. And every time there was no real reason for why she would be coming back. Like what she was doing in this scene could have easily be done by just Gail.
Yeah, so I guess. Yeah.
So I was just like, why do they keep bringing back this random woman played by a notable actress?
Definitely the casting doesn't help, and I think I felt really stupid for not doing it, because there's a couple of moments where she's like, oh, I've got to go, I've got a deadline, just before the killer appears, and I'm like, if you'd been paying attention, you can kind of tell she's quickly off screen whenever that happens as well. So a bit obvious, but I didn't see that one coming, I have to say. I think I did briefly suspect Mickey, just because I was never convinced it was going to be either any of the existing characters, and I was thoroughly convinced they weren't going to do the boyfriend again. Because I was like, they're milking that way too much. It's definitely not going to be the case, because why would they keep on, just lampshading it that way? So I was never suspecting Derek at any point.
Same.
Yeah.
For the same reason. I thought immediately they put so much suspicion on him. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
That's so obvious. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll get into it when I talk about the behind the scenes things with regards to the murderer and the fact that they were changed a number of times, apparently, depending on who you believe. So what about you, though, Kevin? Did you remember the first time you watched this? Did you crack the case of who the killers were? Or were you close? Did you have anyone that you were completely wrong about, like my friend?
I remember pretty clearly not paying too much attention to Debbie Salt. And obviously you can't really, on rewatch, you can't really guess that she's the mother of Billy Loomis.
No, there's one line, but I appreciate it in hindsight, but there's no way you could tell, because it's when Randy's talking about Hallie being the killer and says like, oh, it's kind of against the rules, but not. Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer.
Yeah.
The one moment.
So they kind of, I mean, if you know type deal, but I don't think on first watch it's really possible to guess it. I do remember vaguely suspecting Mickey, but he was kind of like, I'm kind of with Toby, especially rewatching this now. I'm like, man, he disappears for about half an hour. Where I'm like, no, it's definitely not him. I actually think I did suspect Derek, even though they were playing, with the trope of like, oh, it's always the boyfriend. I wondered if maybe they were going to add some twist to that, because I'm usually not inclined to believe that they'll take old characters and make them evil. So I didn't have that on my radar, but I think if I was thinking there were two killers, I think I was either suspecting Hallie. That's her roommate's name, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was either suspecting Hallie as maybe like, because she seemed to kind of soak up the trope and the life that Sydney had been leading up until that point. And then Derek, I wondered if maybe it was like a overprotective boyfriend. Like, I'm not necessarily evil towards Sydney, but maybe I am towards everybody else or something.
Right.
I think those were probably my two prime suspects. So when Mickey and Mrs. Loomis and or Debbie Salt showed up, I was like, oh, no, didn't get that. I'm usually only until recently have I been on the mark where I'm like at least guessing a killer in a Scream film.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever really been all that accurate, to be honest with it. But part of the fun is, I mean, I don't desperately try. I just watch the movie and go along with it. But it's fun. I think I should have said as well before when I was talking about my guesses. At one point when you mentioned like famous actors appearing, we should clarify that Timothy Olyphant wasn't famous. So like you wouldn't be watching it like you might now and be like, oh, it's that guy, so he's going to be important. Like, this was his first film role, so nobody knew who he was. So you are right. Like, when he disappears for vast swaths of the movie, you're just kind of like, oh, that guy? The guy who was briefly talking about Empire Strikes Back at the party? But,
I mean, he kind of lingers, like in scenes like the cafeteria scene where Derek is singing to Sydney, but he just seems like that harmless, like, bit part character that you're like, nah, it can't be him.
Yeah, more or less. But yeah, in terms of like big name cameos, though, I do remember initially being suspicious when David Warner appeared, the late great David Warner. There's the drama teacher, because I was like, David Warner's in this? And again, he appears for one scene in a kind of similar to Debbie Salt kind of way. So I think for a while I was like, could he randomly be one of the killers for some reason? And then when he doesn't appear again after that one scene, I was like, well, obviously not.
They kind of drop that one pretty quickly, don't they? I think my celebrity I was more so on just and I don't know like what their levels of fame were at the time, but once we're seeing the Stab movie playing on the television and I'm seeing like Luke Owens and Heather Graham playing those characters.
Luke Wilson, you mean? Yeah.
Or Luke Wilson, yeah.
Yeah. And to pay off the joke from Scream 1, Tori Spelling playing Sydney.
I know, I love that.
Very good. But well, I'm going to get into the behind the scenes things because there's some fascinating stuff. And part of it relates to what you were saying. It's funny that you suspected Hallie of being the killer because at one point, apparently, she was going to be. So that's one of many tidbits that I'll have. So hopefully you'll not be too bored as I jump into our behind the scenes. First of all, writer Kevin Williamson provided a 5-page outline for a sequel to Scream when he auctioned the original script, hoping to entice bidders with the potential of buying a franchise. Following a successful test screening of Scream and the film's financial and critical success, Dimension did move forward with the sequel while Scream was still in theaters, with the principal cast all returning to star, Craven to direct, and Beltrami to provide the music. That's Marco Beltrami. The film faced controversy following significant issues with plot information leaking onto the internet, revealing the identity of the killers. Now, I have to say, I had no idea about this because this is when not everybody had internet. In '97, it was kind of it was a much rarer thing than it is nowadays, and it was still back in the days when you had to, tie up the phone line if you wanted to go online and wait 20 minutes for a page to download. So this wasn't the kind of internet of today, and there was no real social media or anything. So I that completely passed me by, I have to say. But where was I? That revealed the identity of the killers initially, and combined with the film's rushed schedule, the script was rewritten often. Pages were sometimes completed on the actual day of filming. Various titles were considered for the sequel at different points in the film's production, including Scream Again, Scream Louder, and Scream: the sequel, before the studio decided to simply use Scream 2, because sometimes simple is the best. Scream 2 was released on December the 12th, 1997, less than a year after the release of the first Scream. After the unexpected success of Scream by late 97, Scream 2 was considered such a potential box office success that both the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies and James Cameron's future hit Titanic were moved from their release date of December 12th to the 19th so as to not face the film as competition. And if you are a regular listener to the podcast, get ready to take your drinks, because I have to clarify that I did buy the 4K of Scream 2 to upgrade my collection a little bit to watch it ready for this podcast. And
of course,
I only ever comment if that's a really good transfer. And I have to say the transfer for Scream 2 is sublime. It repairs so much of the damage of the Blu-ray print of Scream 2, which has bizarre lighting, sheen, and odd choices on it, that it was like watching it for the first time in cinema, I would imagine, again. So that's my recommendation, that if you do have a UHD 4K player, Scream 2 is definitely one of the consider it Mike's recommendations. So there you go. And yeah, where was I? We're going to jump into talking about the writing and the plot now, but I do have some more kind of BTS stuff that relates to that. Like its predecessor, Scream 2 combines the violence of the slasher genre with elements of comedy, satire, and whodunit mystery while satirizing the cliche of film sequels. Williamson already had, as we said, 42 pages of the plot developed upon the release. These included 4 different killers: Derek, Hallie, Cotton Weary, and Nancy Loomis, who is the mother of one of the previous film's killers. So, yeah. Did you guys know anything about this kind of information leaking on the internet and people thinking they knew who the killers were and all that stuff? Obviously, Toby, you probably wouldn't have, but what about you, Kevin?
Yeah, obviously, doing, because I'm sort of a research hound. So years later, when I got heavily into the lore of Scream, I remember hearing that they had to do a significant rewrite because the killers' identities had been leaked on the early days of the internet, which is so crazy to think about. I mean, if you find that on the internet back in 1997, then you are like probably a computer hacker these days, because it wasn't as easy as who is the killer in Scream, So it's just it's crazy to think about that. But I think that also just goes to show what a phenomenon Scream was. But it also is like a double-edged sword, because it's like, oh, you're taking away a lot of the fun by, like you were saying, like you just like to sit back and see who the killer is at the end of the day. And I feel like you're definitely losing something if you go into Scream and already know who's behind the mask.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Actually, I'd never spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, because it is part of the fun.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I should say that Kevin Williamson has said, whether it's true or not, in the many years since, that what leaked wasn't necessarily the final idea, and that they came up with a lot of false scripts to try and trace where the leaks were coming from, and fake endings that were never intended to be the actual result. But it seems like in the course of my research that very definitely Hallie was going to be one of the killers, as I said, because most versions of the script had that being the case. Mm-hmm. And they seem to have changed that because people thought that they'd kind of cracked that part. And I do kind of feel for the actress that plays that role, because with that not being the case, she kind of gets reduced to an almost nothing role in the movie as a result, which is
I know. Yeah, she definitely, they give her what they can, with just some funny lines here and there, and just what they can with her. But yeah, what a disappointing rewrite to be like, oh, hey, you're no longer the killer.
Yeah,
but no,
you're actually going to be killed by the cop car part in the movie. Kind of, just before the big denouement, you're going to be killed off in a really dumb way, just turning your back to the killer.
I did think that rewatching this, you were talking about the evolution of the writing and how, like, Scream 2 continues to combine horror with comedy. I do think that maybe they leaned in more into the comedy aspects for this one. Like maybe that was a more subtle part of Scream 1, but it seems like they upped it more for Scream 2, which was kind of a nice little fun ride, because there's some scenes in here that I'm like, this seems a little weird to have in a straight up horror movie, but for what they're going for here, like, the I think I love you scene in the cafeteria, in the classroom sequel debate is like, oh yeah, that's great for this tone.
that's the thing. They can totally get away with it because it's set in a college doing a film class, which is, I mean, it's a stroke of genius, but it is obvious when you think about it. So that was kind of one of the questions I was going to ask about the writing. Is that one of the things I love is, as I said, the fact that it extends this postmodern thing one step further by introducing Stab, which is basically the in-universe version of Scream. And yeah, it was such a weird concept to get your head around, and yet such a cool way of introducing that idea of now they're not just commenting on, oh, we're living in a real life horror movie. They are literally like, oh, that horror movie that we are watching is our life that was made into a book and then a film. And I mean, you know, without getting too spoilery, they do keep going with this idea of the Stab movies reflecting the Scream movies for right the way through to Scream 6, I do believe. Certainly, it's still mentioned, I think, in 4 and 5. So what do you guys think about the Stab movies and the way that they can kind of do this commenting on horror movies stuff? Did you appreciate that, Toby, when you first saw it? Obviously, yesterday.
I mean, it's a nice idea. I'm not sure they did as much with it, at least in this one, as I would maybe think they could have done. I don't know. I just like it's a nice touch, definitely. But I think there could have been done. I don't know how they could have done more with it, but I feel like they should have done more with it.
I just appreciated, like I said, the way that it was a natural extension of the kind of the characters are savvy enough to realize they're in a horror film kind of thing. And yeah. So what about you, Kevin? Did you appreciate any of it? Was there anything that stood out in the kind of the Stab aspect of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice parallel actually to go along with the current murder mystery that we were watching, to kind of go back through the old one, because when you're kind of looking for like, you know, patterns to uncover a plot, you would obviously retrace your steps sort of. And I thought it was kind of cool to have this, you know, kind of small plot point of there being a movie about the previous killings that the characters could go to for a reference. And then it was also kind of a nice visualization for the audience. I thought that even if maybe if you came in to Scream 2 without seeing Scream 1, Stab kind of plays that role of like, well, here's a refresher, or here's some info that maybe you didn't see in the first one.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool. I was trying to think, like, is this one of the first movie within a movie like executions? Because I couldn't think of anything, at least not off the top of my head, that did it this straight up, like this is a movie within a movie before Scream 2.
Yeah, I'm sure there probably were, but not, like you said, to that level where it's literally, you know, Ouroboros style commenting on itself kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was always just like, you know, a character might have been starring in a movie that was an actor, or a movie might have been on in the background, or, you know, but it was never used to comment on film in the way that these specifically are. And that's one of the things I wanted to say, actually, is that I always love the cold opens to the Scream movies before the titles. And I mean, this one sets out as it means to go on, because it does use the opportunity to have Stab comment on Scream as a movie and have the black characters saying, like, historically black characters are just completely underutilized in these films, as they are black characters in a horror film. So it's a nice level of you know, commenting on that, criticizing that whilst sort of rectifying it a little bit. But also they are the kind of, they're very much the audience surrogates in the way that Jada Pinkett does stuff like, oh, bitch, hang up and star 69 his ass. You know? Oh, why is she got to be naked? What does it add to the script if her tits are out, kind of thing? You know, and you're kind of like, all right, yeah, I get what's happening here. We're commenting on stuff. And
I didn't really like the opening scene.
You didn't like it?
No, I did like it. I did like it a lot, actually.
Yeah,
I thought this was actually really good into the way they used Stab in the opening scene. I just think after that, it just didn't really go anywhere. And I feel like the problem is mainly that they kept bringing it up. So I was like, okay, they're going to do something with it. And then I feel like they didn't do as much as I thought they would have done.
I see.
And
yeah, no,
maybe I would have just liked it if they did not keep putting emphasis on it later on in the movie. If it was just in the opening scene. Like that's
I see what you mean. I think it was sorry, go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, I can kind of see where Toby's coming from, because I will say that when I was going in to watch this, I was trying to remember what it was about Scream 2 that kind of like I said, put it further down on the list for me. And I think what it boils down to is I would argue that the pacing isn't as strong in this one as it is in Scream 1, because it seems like Stab is established very on as like a big plot point, and then we kind of go like let's go to the campus for a bit and reintroduce the characters. But then Stab comes back into play. And there's a little bit of meandering in there, maybe, and maybe that's why for you, Toby, maybe that's why the Stab execution doesn't come as swiftly or as cleanly as it should.
I have to say, I love that moment in the movie. I think Jada Pinkett sells that death incredibly well. It's so disturbing in that the kind of visceral
so
scream
dramatic.
that she makes of like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Oh, geez, that's amazing. Yeah, this death scene of Jada and her boyfriend is pretty vicious. Likening it to the first one, there's not as much like build as the first one, but man, when the death comes, it's brutal. The stab through the bathroom stall and then being butchered in the theater, like,
yeah. I remember thinking that because when the first kill comes, as you're saying, I was absolutely not expecting Phil to be stabbed through the ear. So when that happens, I was like, oh shit, they're going there. They're not afraid to be a little bit, because you always think you're a bit safe in certain areas. And I was like, oh, he's listening in. What's going on? And then I said, stabbed through the ear. I was like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But the sad thing is I now can't take it seriously because I've seen Scary Movie.
I knew you were going to say that.
Absolutely ruins that scene by having it be a glory hole and then somebody sticking their dick in someone's ear.
Especially you got Sean Wayans there being like, who is that? Do it again. Like, it's so true. And the parody of Brenda doing Jada's like commentary in the movie is so over the top too that it's great.
God, yeah, exactly. But no, as you said, a very good start. But they comment themselves. So I see your point, Toby, and your point as well, Kevin, in terms of the pacing, because they mentioned themselves, last time there were a lot more deaths before the big break, the end point, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, yeah, I didn't really notice, but I suppose when you comment on it, it makes it obvious that, there's only really been the two people in the film and in the actual film premiere and Sarah Michelle Gellar that have died. So it's not really a huge body count when you're talking about like the body count will be bigger. So then it really does pile deaths of random people on the cops and Randy and just try and up the body count that it promised you, and Hallie, obviously, and stuff. So
I will say that was a huge shocker to me, is how, because I remembered Sarah Michelle Gellar being here, but she really doesn't last long before she is thrown over a balcony.
No, she doesn't. It's a great scene though, and I love seeing Sarah Michelle in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of Buffy, and I've had a huge crush on Sarah Michelle for years. So anytime I watch Scream 2, I'm always like, oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar, amazing.
Yeah, big year for her with Buffy gearing up and then doing this. And then I Know What You Did Last Summer in the same year.
I was just going to say that was another Kevin Williamson script. That's how she got the gig on Scream 2, apparently. So,
yeah.
Because she was already in I Know What You Did Last Summer, which don't watch that. Even though she's in it a lot more, it's really not. So, no, it's I like seeing her, though, and I like that scene. I think that's the closest thing to kind of the Drew Barrymore, tense stalking type scene that you get in this movie, because you can't really do that in the movie theater and with the people that are too savvy to things. So, yeah, it's cool. One thing I did want to mention, and it's kind of apropos of nothing, but there's like a random site that I go on sometimes about these movies that's like a full-on fan site that tries to break down like which of the killers did the killing at any given point and where they are. So it's trying to work out like, who's Mrs. Loomis and who's Mickey. And some of it makes sense, and I kind of agree with it. So like it mentions Mrs. Loomis is on the phone to Sydney at the frat house because she even specifically says, "Do you remember me?" Which makes it make, obviously it makes sense in terms of it's the ghost face or whatever, but it makes it make literal sense. And Mickey would be the one that's actually chasing her physically because he's not on the phone and he's not there, and then randomly appears at the back of the party later when the killer's gone. So I get all of that, but I have a bone to pick with their opinion when it comes to the start of the movie, because they claim that it's Mickey the whole time in the movie theater, and I don't think it is, because I know it obviously is him that puts on the mask and imitates being Jada's boyfriend, the Phil character, because you'd notice if it was a middle-aged woman and not a man, it's got to be the same body type. But I think it's Mrs. Loomis that's whispering in the stall that makes him put his ear to the door, because it's definitely a feminine voice, and you can almost hear it saying like, "Mommy's looking after you. Mommy's looking out for you. Mommy's gonna do this for you." So I'm convinced that's why he put his ear and was laughing. Like it's her in the bathroom stall when she shouldn't be, and he's like, "There's a woman in here," and so she stabs Phil. Then one of the people at the urinal would have been Mickey, that she then gives Phil's clothes to and makes sit next to Jada Pinkett and kills her. So if anybody's interested and wants to agree or disagree with me on that one, that this is how deep of a dive I get into when I'm going full Benoit Blanc on these films.
Well, we can go even.
Sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go even deeper because once you know who the killers are and you notice that they have different motives from one another.
Yeah.
If you look at the kills, I mean, the kill with Phil, with the stab through the stall is pretty vicious. And then the one in the theater is a little more like comedic.
Well, it's stagey as well. It's staged deliberately, and that's very Mickey's kind of whole modus operandi, isn't it? Yeah,
Mickey's very like, let's put on a show. They're literally doing this like on a theater stage at the end, and he's making big entrances, whereas she's just like, nope, good old fashioned revenge. I'm here to kill and move on.
Yeah, and I mean, if you didn't know it, you could work it out, but she makes it very explicit. It was her that killed Randy when she says at the end, like, be careful when you're bad-mouthing Billy. Last time Randy did that, I got very knife happy. And I was like, well, that was obviously her then.
Oh, I love that line too.
Which the rat-looking mama's boy line.
Yeah, that one. And then also just like, Randy spoke ill of Billy and I got a little knife happy. Like, it's like just an accident that it happened. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Although that's something that I have to touch on as well, because I remember it being massively controversial at the time. Jamie Kennedy really not liking it, and the film itself kind of even commenting on it when he says, like, one thing you don't ever do is, and then trails off, and the implication being kill off your popular character and whatever. And I really liked Randy because I was often the geek that didn't get the girl. So I remember thinking, oh, I'm not sure about killing Randy off in this movie. And he was always, like in the first two movies, he was the voice of the film commenting on itself in that way. He was the one that told you the rules. It was the rules of horror in the first one. It's the rules of a sequel in this one. So it's, it's again, not a huge spoiler to say that in the third one, they kind of realize they fucked up. So Randy has to have made a videotape because he's already dead. Like, here are the rules of the third part of a trilogy, but I'm doing this on tape because I'm clearly dead now. And I'm like, you realize you've effed this, right?
I am really curious with your view, Toby, being kind of new to this sequel and maybe Scream in general. Like, have you kind of been able to really get behind Sydney as like a final girl, and especially with her evolution in Scream 2?
Yeah, no, I think she's good in this movie. I like her evolution actually. She definitely comes across as in some ways stronger than in the last movie, and stands up more for herself in a lot of ways. And I that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really too bothered by her.
It's strange you mentioned that, because I had a friend of mine when we were talking about this, who's been on the podcast before actually, who was saying doesn't like the Scream movies at all because he thinks of it as just kind of like it's an excuse to have violence towards women and stuff. And I was like, I very much don't agree. I don't think it's just that for its own sake, and there's no real gender bias in it. There's just as brutal killings of men in these movies. Yeah. And he did say, but I have to acknowledge that there's an attempt to make Sydney into the very feminist kind of icon to kind of balance that out and be always the survivor. And they even have Mickey saying this, you've got a Linda Hamilton thing going on, kind of thing. So,
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's more practical that she's the main character, so of course she's going to survive. Like, I think that, like, I don't really get the viewpoint of, like, they're trying to make her an icon by always surviving. Like, no, she's the main character. She's going to survive. I mean,
there's surviving, but there's the way that she gets more and more kick-ass and just over this shit. And as Kevin says, it's the fact that she starts the movie instead of cowering on the phone. It's just kind of like, why don't you tell me who this is? Well, it's such and such at this address. Newsflash: prank calls are a federal offense. Hope you enjoyed the movie.
It is the reason why I say what I say about, like, she's often as viewed as a standout final girl is because, like you said, Mike, she is very, like, not just a survivor. She even says it in this movie. She's a fighter, like, she is by the end using, like, her environment to outsmart the killers, and she's one-upping people that are trying to mess with her, including the sorority girls. And, like, she's a very active character. Well, they save the progression and then regression, like, back and forth for the relations between Dewey and Gale, because what a what a backpedal in Scream 2 that they have, where now they hate each other again.
Yeah, it's weird that, and I just have to say, my one kind of biggest criticism of this film is how the fuck Dewey survives. I do not know. It's like that guy should so be dead, and
yes,
I get it. The whole sort of jokey thing of like, oh, he survived because it hit existing scar tissue from the previous wounds, and I'm like, come on, man. I mean, I remember being happy at the time because I liked the characters, but I was also like, don't have a scene where he's clearly been butchered, stabbed multiple times. At least make it feasible and not ridiculous that he survived this.
I did call out that he will survive, but they didn't do anything with that, and that was the disappointing part of me, because I did call out that he would survive mainly because the way it is shot, and it's like this huge glass thing, and he only and Gale only notices in the last second.
Yeah.
So it did come across to me as very much a thing of that Gale at some point would be like, no, but I saw him dying.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
and then they didn't do anything with it, and only in the end revealed it, and I was like, what was the point of that?
That's why I was convinced he was dead, because you see a lot of blood, and it's not like it's one stab and the killer gets distracted or whatever. It's like he really is stabbed many times, So I was convinced, and then, like I said, happy that he was around because I like the character, but like, come on, don't do that. Although I do love the scene, as you said. I think it's really clever to have it behind the kind of soundproof glass and have it happening so that we, the audience, can see it, but Gale can't, and you're kind of screaming at her as well. And then have it be him touching the microphone, and just that last sort of like, that she hears of like, oh shit. It's very interesting when they start talking in the film class about like, are these murders because of the movie? And you have the argument of, no, we can't, people are responsible for their own stuff. Saying that it's movie's fault is stupid. And there could have been an interesting discussion there, but they just basically have that one film class moment and then ignore it. And at the end of the movie, have the killer say, oh, that wasn't my motivation at all. I want to have a trial and be famous kind of thing. Oh, all right. Jeez. What are we trying to say here?
Well, it was almost the parallels between the two killers having different motivations. It's like, okay, so the film class argument was kind of alluding to Mickey's motivation, where like, I just want a big trial and a big show, and I'm learning from what came before, and just getting fame from that. Whereas, there's that whole thing like Sydney's like, no, this has to do with me. It's not just the craze of the movie. And then there's another killer who it actually does have to do with her, with Mrs. Loomis coming for revenge. So I thought that was kind of clever writing.
Did you guys have anything you wanted to mention on the writing that we haven't touched on at all? Toby, I'll ask you first, because you said you had a lot of notes, or was it just, were you just Agatha Christieing this?
I think I have one more thing to mention. Well, the main reason why I really like Scream 1, like, there's a lot of things to love about that, but I think the third act of Scream 1 is incredible, and I think Scream 1, the third act, is quite scary, at least for me.
There are moments that I find, I wouldn't say they're terrifying, but they're scary enough. I think the cop car moment in this was the first time in both of the first two films that I was like, wow, this is really scary, because you're thinking they're gonna jump up at any moment on either Sid or Hallie as they're kind of crawling over the masked person, and then when Sydney's like, I have to know, and she's gonna go take the mask off, and you're like, just run away. Don't do it. So yeah, there's more tension than scared. But sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, I think the entire third act of the first movie solidified it as a 5 out of 5 for me, because I think otherwise it would have been like still a good score, but not a perfect score. And I think the difference is that this movie's end act is not as strong, I think, honestly.
Right. Okay.
Or at least, yeah, I would say not as strong, but also different. I think both is the case. I don't think this movie is as scary as the first one.
Oh, honestly. I would say it was scarier, weirdly enough, but okay.
I don't. Yeah. Like the opening scene give you that, of course. Yeah. And then the only other thing was, as you said, the one in the car. But I think for me, the first one, like most of the scenes were really scary, and especially the entire third act in the house and in before the house in the car where Gale was and all that. I thought was way more scary than anything Scream 2 did. Okay. So I think that's one of the things that left me a little bit. Oh, okay.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, it's like horror in that regard in terms of scares. It's subjective. It's like comedy. I could find something hilarious. You could just think it was, groan worthy. It's all just an individual opinion. But I have to say, I think the second one was scarier. Nothing in the first one bothered me, but in the second one, I found it hard to watch that sort of cop car scene the first time because I was convinced he was going to jump up. And as I said already, the shock factor of the guy getting stabbed through the ear in the very start, I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that.
These two instances, I just think the first one had a lot more instances like that, and the second one just had these two, and that was it for me.
Okay. I found the Sarah Michelle Gellar scene a little bit sort of not scary as such, but quite tense as well in places. Were you not impressed?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't innovative. Let's just say that. I have a hard time to say if it was more scary than similar scenes in the first one, but because you start with the first one, you already done that. So by the time the second one is doing that again, it's diminishing returns. Even if it maybe was better executed, I don't know, not sure. It didn't affect me.
I have to say, related to what you're saying with that, I do think there are also a couple of really cheap jump scares where they try to scare you because they know you're on edge, and it never works for me. So, like when Phil jumps out at Maureen at the start and in the mask, and I'm like, oh god. Or when Sarah Michelle Gellar's on the phone and really tense, and then the other frat girl just jumps out of a room and goes, "Oh hey, I popped back to get something," and I'm like, oh, don't do that. That's so cheap. But I mean, I get it. I understand. What about you, Kevin? Did you have anything that you wanted to know?
One more piece of writing, and then just sort of my final thoughts on Scream 2. One clever piece of writing. While I don't really like the regression of Gail and Dewey's relationship that much in this, I do like the payoff where there's a scene where they make up and they're starting to have sex while there's a tape of Dewey just like saying terrible things to Gail playing in the background where he's like, you're a terrible, insensitive person as they're making out. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then he just can't let go of her breast when she's
Dewey. So, I love the payoff there. And I love like how Dewey's just mumbling gibberish in his stretcher when they wheel him out. We got a live one. We got a live one. It's like, okay, what? So there is that fun payoff there. So I think that for me, Scream 2, like when I say that it's, because I think it's still probably, now I'll have to revisit Scream 3, but I'm also sort of a weird defender of that one where I know a lot of people don't really like it. So I do think even when I put a Scream movie towards the bottom of a list or at the bottom of a list, I actually don't dislike any of the Scream films. I actually think it's one of the most consistent franchises in the horror genre.
Oh, also I agree. I completely
where if someone's like, gun to your head, you have to watch a Scream movie, I go, okay, which one? Because I love them all. And I like the evolution of Sydney's character in here. I think it's satisfying emotional arcs for stuff that were put on screen in the first one. I think the humor is up tier. I'll agree with you, Mike, that I think that the scene of Cece, that's Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, I like. There's a shot that's kind of out of focus, but while her sorority sisters or whatever she is like, oh, hey, like it's your boyfriend, you see Ghostface like scampering along in the background.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
I love that because that's when he says like, oh, he echoes what her roommate said and like, oh, don't forget to set the alarm. And you're just like, there's no point. He's in the house now.
Yes. So I like that stuff. I agree with, Toby about the car scene, like the whole, like, you're not sure if he's awake, but you can hear him breathing. I think where this movie just has some issues is the pacing. Like when I looked at the runtime, I watched this on Paramount Plus and I'm like, holy shit, this thing's 2 hours long. Which is long for a slasher.
I guess. I mean, I think they're all roughly that, though, aren't they? The Scream movies.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Probably hour 40, hour 45. I think there's just a few, like the Gale scene with the chase goes on a little too long for my taste. Where I'm like, okay, let's wrap it up a little bit. But it's nothing that ruins the movie. It's just some minor gripes that make it a little less superior to the first one, but it's still a really worthy sequel and one that I enjoy a lot. So I was happy to revisit it. There's some stuff I didn't appreciate on the first go around, so I really like this one.
Fair enough. I forgot to say as well, my other, I really love this one, but I'm coming up with criticisms. And one of the other ones I had was, I kind of like the clever idea that the killers, that they're looking for kind of copycat type things. So they're names that are similar to the people from the Woodsboro killings and from the Stab movie. And that's just dropped after Sarah Michelle Gellar's death.
I know.
They just completely ignore it. And I was like, oh, that's a shame. Like,
I got really
had something going on there
about that when I saw that it was Phil, because I'm like, how is Phil tied to that? But I'm like, oh, Steve from the first one, with his last name being Stevens. Yeah.
Obviously, you had CCO. Her real name was Casey. So, okay.
Yeah. Dropped plot point, but still kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you have to also count Sydney's mom, which is weird. That the Maureen refers to her because you wouldn't necessarily assume that, would you? But okay, fair enough. I'll try and race through the other stuff I've got as quick as I can. I don't want to keep us.
I also have one more thing, but you can go first if you.
No, you go for it. Go for it.
It's just a little thing, because maybe I wasn't that into the comedy as you all were, but one thing I actually thought was funny was when they are on the phone with the killer on the campus, and they just run into everyone that's like talking on the phone and just snatch the phone off them. They're like, hello.
Yeah, I like that scene because I think that's a perfect marriage of like tense but funny, you know. Like, who is this? Okay, where is author of the Woodsboro murders?
And then in the end, there's this one guy like who's really suspicious, like not suspicious, but it's shot in a suspicious way, where he's just standing alone, like somewhere far away, and they run to him, and she just snatches his phone from him, and he just completely jumps him from like up above a latch.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm going to move us on next. I don't want to be too much longer, but I do have little tiny bits of notes for the other sections. Starting with the direction, I mean, there's not a lot you can say. Wes Craven is obviously a legend for a reason. But in terms of the BTS information regarding that, Craven was apparently hesitant to return and direct this film. He was worried about missing other opportunities and didn't want to be trapped by the Scream franchise. So Williamson and the other filmmakers talked with Robert Rodriguez, who you may know as the director of Sin City and the Mariachi Trilogy, Spy Kids, etc., about directing Scream 2, an offer he was willing to take, but Craven ultimately felt unable to leave Scream 2 to someone else and agreed to direct it. Rodriguez had at that point left to direct The Faculty. Although Rodriguez is credited as the director of Stab in Universe, those scenes, like everything else, were actually filmed by Wes Craven. So there you go. In an interview, Craven commented on the rushed 6-month production schedule, with the film being expected ready for release on December 12th, as we said, less than a year after Scream. Williamson was forced to rewrite a script, of course. Pages for scenes would often only be ready on the day of filming, and others lacked significant detail, forcing Craven to develop them as the scenes took place. So again, kudos to having to add embellishments and things. Craven had difficulties passing the first Scream through the film rating body, the MPAA, to receive an R rating and help the film remain commercially viable, sending 8 different cuts and requiring the direct intervention of Dimension Films founder Bob Weinstein to eventually obtain the necessary rating to release the film without significant cuts. Eager to avoid that experience on Scream 2, Craven attempted to manipulate the MPAA by sending a version of the film that had been edited to focus on and enhance the gore and violence present beyond what they actually wanted in the film, including reusing a clip of Omar Epps' character being stabbed in the ear 3 times instead of only once, as seen in the final film, and an extended scene of Randy's death that showed his throat being slashed. Craven's reasoning was that the parts of the film they wanted to keep would be more acceptable when viewed with the enhanced violence, and so the MPAA would force them to remove the footage they already didn't want to keep while passing the content they did want. However, the MPAA granted Scream 2 an R rating for the more violent cut, as they believed the underlying message of the film was significant enough to warrant the violence. Go figure. And if you want any further evidence of what a legend Wes is, one scene in Kevin Williams' screenplay is described simply with the line, "Wes Craven will make it scary." So what can you say about that? So anything you wanted to mention on the direction, guys, before I move along from there?
Nothing too much on my end with that. I just Wes Craven was when he passed, that was a hard one, because the man I do think is one of the horror greats, and with Scream 1, he people talk about it all the time. Horror was kind of like in the shitter. in the 90s and was in a weird lull, and then Scream comes along and it's revitalized in so many ways with Scream, and with, you know, Wes Craven's ideas and Kevin Williamson's you know, screenplay. And it just, you know, you got to throw all the love in the world to him. He was just a great director and a great creative force. So
absolutely. I mean, to have one kind of iconic horror hit the zeitgeist would be impressive, but to have the amount he did, like, you know, Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, these are all iconic, you know, parts of the horror genre. So, and it's a fantastic direction. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't really note anything down when sort of making notes, sorry, but I was like, just watching it, you can tell it's an expert at work because it just flows beautifully and it just looks amazing. Like I said,
well, I was gonna say, I think you know, and I think Mike, you and I talked about this kind of off air, but I think this movie just looks like the 90s, and I applaud Wes Craven for really being like, not just in dialogue or music or whatever, visually being able to capture the 90s on film with the film quality and the way everything looks and the style and everything. So I think he's captured an era which is something that is very difficult to do for a lot of people. So
oh, for sure. I remember the first time I heard that Kevin Williamson was who wrote the Scream films was the creator of Dawson's Creek, and I was like, why does that weirdly figure? In an odd sort of way, I can see the link there. But yeah, fair enough. What about you, Toby? Anything at all, or no?
I don't really have anything negative to say about the direction.
No, it's very good, very good. I have a couple of things on the acting then that I wanted to move on to. Obviously, we've kind of mentioned the main players and how good they are: David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox. Sarah Michelle Gellar, as we mentioned, plays Cece Cooper. Many of the actors involved in this production, including obviously Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Jerry O'Connell, were starring in their own TV series at the time, allowing the production limited availability to schedule their involvement. Gellar, in particular, was in between filming on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and had just finished work on I Know What You Did Last Summer, as we mentioned. Despite the hectic schedule, Gellar admitted in an interview that she agreed to perform in Scream 2 without reading a script because of the success of Scream. And one thing I did notice and thought was pretty amusing, Cece is rather appropriately shown to be watching the film Nosferatu. So she just can't escape those bloody vampires. So
I didn't put that together, but I liked that little Easter egg. I just viewed it as like, no, they show the shot of Nosferatu creeping up the stairs and you see the shadow. And I thought that was a nice parallel to the shadowy figure of Ghostface creeping around the house.
Yeah, but you didn't put it together that it was vampires.
No, I surprisingly was so. That's what I'm saying. I think of the highlights, I agree with you that I think Cece's stalking and death scene is one of the highlights of the film. And so it just wasn't even on my radar. Like, oh, sure, we'll put a Buffy the Vampire Slayer nod in here.
I think Sarah's a great actress as well. She doesn't get enough credit, even as you say, in a very small role. She sells it really well. But yeah. So moving to Laurie Metcalf, as we mentioned, plays Debbie Salt / Nancy Loomis. Metcalf had only just finished her 9-year run on Roseanne, which I'm sure we all know about, when she began work on Scream 2. And Craven was very praised of her ability to portray the deranged Nancy Loomis. Again, I think we all basically agree with that, don't we? So. Yeah, I don't have a lot else. I have to mention Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi as the kind of frat sisters in the movie. They're such a minor role, but they're so amusing, and they are, I think, indicative of what you were saying, Kevin, about like this movie leaning more into the comedy, because they're just such exaggerated stereotypes, and they are played to be deliberately exaggerated.
Yes, I actually, I was trying to remember like what her name was, Rebecca Gayheart, because not long after, well. Definitely a long time. Only just within the last couple of years, I started to go back to the other 90s slashers that came in the wake of Scream.
Oh, nice.
And I'm quite the fan of Urban Legend.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
So seeing Rebecca Gayheart in here was fun to see, like a year before she went on to do Urban Legend. So
yeah, it's weird you mentioned that because Gayheart had apparently auditioned for the role of Tatum in the first Scream. And auditioned multiple times for Scream 2 for the roles of Cece, Hallie, and Maureen before eventually being cast as the frat sister alongside Portia.
I wish that she had a little more to do. She was kind of a fun character in here. I would have liked to have seen her do a little more, but I'm glad she's here. I like her as an actress. So yeah.
I can fully see Portia de Rossi's comedy chops as well. You can see what led to Arrested Development because she's just so good at the OTT. And I have to mention Roger Jackson, of course, returns as the voice of Ghostface. Usually when making a movie, when an actor or actress is heard but not seen, like a voice on a telephone, the actor or actress records their part during post-production. However, Wes Craven had Roger on set actually speaking to the actors and actresses by practical, not just prop telephone, in order to create reality and fear for them. I have to praise that. Jackson was kept out of sight of the other actors, so they could not put a friendly face to the voice. Jackson said that the actors and actresses were intimidated by him and wouldn't talk to him any more than was absolutely necessary, with the exception of Sarah Michelle Gellar, who would converse amiably with him on the telephone between takes. I wish there was footage of that. Really.
Oh, they need to, like, Shout Factory or something needs to do the special Blu-ray release of Scream 2 and have that on the bonus features. That's awesome.
It's just great, isn't it? And we haven't even mentioned, mentioning Dawson's Creek, Joshua Jackson randomly appearing as film class guy number 1, doesn't even get a name. And we've already mentioned Tori Spelling playing herself as Sidney Prescott in Stab, based on the sarcastic remark by Sidney in the first movie that, knowing my luck, I'd get Tori Spelling. Apparently, Wes Craven said that Tori was a good sport about the joke and happy to take part. And,
that's great.
I did mention as well briefly, David Warner appears as Gus Gold, the drama teacher. He was personally chosen by Wes Craven for this cameo because Craven had been impressed with Warner's acting ever since seeing him in The Omen in 1976. Warner had apparently also auditioned for the part of Freddy Krueger, which I never knew, in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow.
Which would have been fascinating. And finally, if you don't know this, I always find it a little bit fascinating. The sheriff in this movie is played by the actor Louis Arquette, who you may not know is the father of David Arquette. So it was a bit of a family affair for this movie. He's passed sadly now, his father Louis Arquette, but he's good in this. It's a good role. So,
that's fun.
Yeah.
I did maybe I'm stretching a little too much, but you talked about Gus and like the theater set, because there's a really interesting scene in the middle with that theater production that Sydney's doing, where they're like
Cassandra, ancient Greek
yes,
kind of thing.
Yes. But they do a lot of dialogue about fate there. I might be stretching, but I felt like that was kind of a fun, like, modernized nod to the classroom scene from Halloween, where they're talking about fate as Michael Myers stalks Laurie. Thought that was kind of fun. If that's what they were going for.
It could have been. I mean, it's a film that's not afraid to comment on movies. I mean, it redoes the Top Gun, singing scene, so it wouldn't surprise me. I have to say as well that is another scene that I found really scary and very effective, when she's being chased by the people in the kind of Greek tragedy masks, and then the ghost face mask just appears among them. I thought that was really effectively freaky.
Did you take that as Ghostface was actually there, or was that like a PTSD moment? Okay.
I fully just read that as being in Sydney's mind because of the flashing lights and the sort of everything moving too fast. So I don't think they were really there. No.
Okay, cool. I couldn't tell because it was so quick.
I mean, I think you could read it that way if you wanted to, but for me, it was always just, the fact that it ends and nobody else looks suspicious on the auto. I was going to say, what are you doing?
They'd have to be like super fast to run out of the theater that quickly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, where's one of our cloaks? It's missing.
Anyway, so the music and sound is an interesting thing I did want to briefly touch on. Marco Beltrami received positive critical reception for the score for evolving the musical themes of the characters created in Scream, although some critics claimed the most memorable pieces from this film were created by Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer. Again, I had no idea about this, but Elfman contributed the choral track Cassandra Aria, which plays during the scene we just mentioned, with Campbell performing in the play, and again in the film's finale as Cassandra Aria reprise. It had been specially written for the film, and it was always intended to be there, Danny Elfman having contributed it. But Hans Zimmer's score for Broken Arrow 1996 was controversially used in the film, replacing Beltrami's work, in particular some guitar work by Dwayne Eddy, for the character Dewey, replacing the tracks that had been developed for the character from the original Scream score. Beltrami explained in an interview that the Zimmer piece was used as a placeholder for Beltrami's incomplete score during test screenings, and they reacted so well to it that it influenced the studio to keep the Hans Zimmer piece, reducing Dewey's theme to just minor use during more serious scenes. And weird. I had no idea about any of that. And actually, the only things I noticed were the existing Beltrami score motifs and things, and the reuse of, is it Red Right Hand? I think is the name of the song. When that reappears, I was pretty pleased. Yeah, Nick Cave, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, weird. Did you guys know anything about the music? Did you notice anything off about it? Or?
No, not really.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, in that case, I'll probably move us next to the audience feedback, and then we can end this by giving our favourite things and conclusions and score. So I did put out something on social media asking for audience opinions on this. Didn't get a lot of response, but I did find a few things on Letterboxd from sort of mutual friends as well about this. So I'll see how much of this I can get through and share the opinions on that. So if you were one of the, I think, 2 people that commented when I put it on all the socials, thank you. The first of those is from the group Northeast Retro Den on Facebook. Mark James Gray says 2 words make this a classic Scream. Billy's mother. That line is hilarious, and the way it's delivered while looking up and doing some sort of emphasizing gyration is an all-time great Scream moment. I think you appreciated that as well, didn't you, Kevin? You were saying so. And from the group 80s and 90s movies, Sharon Parker just left the intense, very long review. I liked it. So much to be said about that. Over on Letterboxd, Paul Denuzio gives the film 3 stars and says, I'm surprised how much less I liked this one this time. A bit of a downgrade. New characters are basically painfully thin. And there was a big mistake. What were they thinking when killing this character? Not as great as I remember, and not nearly as close to the perfect original as I'd previously thought. Somebody that may well agree with you there, Toby. We shall see. Alexei Toliopoulos gives it 4 stars and says, just as funny, exciting, clever, and interesting as the first, a superior slasher. Eric Zipper gives it 3 stars and simply writes, murder me, Timothy. Get a room. 115 Bryce gives it 4.5 and says, why does Ghostface always get whacked by random ass shit? You tell me, man. David _Cafferty gives it 4 stars and says, I wish I had a friend group like this. Seems fun. Some of these reviews are just brilliant, man. Letterboxd is a treasure trove. Mr. _Zeeb gives it 3 stars and says, not as cat and mouse as the first movie. It was still fun, but wasn't as clever or interesting. The ending especially is where it was the weakest. Again, Toby, you probably agree there. It wasn't as fun or clever, but the action was bigger, just like they stated. Connor O'Neill gives 3.5 stars and says, this is a vastly inferior sequel made more interesting by the fact that it knows it's an inferior sequel. All right. There's some great kills in this. I like the killer reveal and some funny commentary on sequels. The opening's hilarious, but overall it's not as funny or fresh as Scream 1. And I suppose that's kind of the point. 7 out of 10. Jamie Davies gives it 3.5 and says, when you consider how ridiculously quickly they pumped it out, it's astounding this film is this good. Like its predecessor, it has a really funny, clever, knowing script. I like the riffing on sequels being bad early on. It's slightly disappointing that you can't say the film is scary, but regardless, it's still a fun ride. Michael Vincent gives it 5 out of 5 and says Scream 2 isn't just a smart conversation about horror sequels, it's a successful one itself, a perfect elaboration on the original. And let's see, have we got a couple of other things, I should say. Abby Friel gives it 3.5 stars and just says, hi, Courtney Cox's red hair. Thanks for that, Abby. And, yeah, the rest that I have here is just to give a kind of critical response to kind of, other than the amateur reviews to sort of see what this film has critically. I always like to put a little bit of that in nowadays. So with an 82% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, this is the best reviewed film in the film series. You may be surprised to learn. Both Gene Siskel and New York Times' Janet Maslin gave it positive reviews despite their negative responses to the original Scream. Maslin remarked, Scream 2 almost works as straight satire. It's so sharp, pardon the expression. Roger Ebert stated the film was about as good as the original, but lamented that Scream 2 is gorier and that distracts from the witty screenplay. Time Out London was mixed in their response, calling it superior to most other horror films, but poor in comparison to Scream, while Variety, scathing of Scream before its release, positively received this sequel, saying that characters ponder whether any sequel ever topped the original. Scream 2 is certainly worthy of being part of that debate. Empire's Kim Newman echoed that sentiment, saying there's some great comic and terrifying moments, but it suffers for not being as original as the original, remarking that though the film had the same elements that made Scream a success, they weren't surprising anymore. There was, however, criticism, as we touched on, over the death of the character Randy Meeks. John Muir, author of Wes Craven, The Art of Horror, called the character's death the most devastating moment of the sequel and a bad call, but praised the development of the other surviving characters from Scream, calling Cox, Arquette, and Campbell's characters beloved. In contrast, Muir criticized all of the new characters in Scream 2, believing they never attained the same depth as the Scream cast because of Scream 2's focus on increasing body count and violence, saying the film's killer could literally be anyone, as the audience has never provided with enough information about the new characters to form an opinion about them. And I'm not sure about that. Ebert also commented upon this, saying there's no way to guess who's doing the killing, and everyone who seems suspicious is almost sure to be innocent. Ouch. All right. So, I mean, I think we agree in part with that, but it's maybe a little harsh, and it's weird seeing how overall positive, but weirdly sometimes mixed responses to this are, especially with regards to the first one as well. So, yeah. With everyone else's opinion given, then I'm going to go around and do what I always do on my episodes, which is to ask our favorite character, moment, and line in the movie. This is going to be all new to you, Kevin. I should have given you some advance warning, so I'll give you a minute. And Toby, I'll come to you first. Who's your favorite character in the movie, first of all?
Ooh, that's actually hard.
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna say Sydney.
Yeah, okay.
She's the main character, I guess, so that makes sense. But
yeah, it does.
I think she owns this movie mostly, and I thought her characterization was probably the strongest in the movie from everyone. Yeah, so I'm just gonna say Sydney.
Fair enough. What was your favorite moment or scene in the movie then? In that case,
moment. I'd say the cold opening. The cold opening was really good.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm going to say cold opening.
And do you have a favorite
really good, scary moment? Line. I can't think of any right now. Shit. Any line. I really can't think of a line.
It's fine if you can't, you can't. It's fair enough.
Good line.
We've mentioned a few of them, I think, during the recording, just funny moments and stuff. So it's fine if you can't think of one off the top of your head. Right. I'll jump into mine then and say my favorite character. I used to relate, as I said, a lot to Randy, which concerns me because I hope I wasn't quite as annoying. But now I'm drawn much more to Sydney's arc in this film, and I kind of agree with you, Toby. I think that's the more compelling character to follow here. My favorite moment or scene is the cop car moment. I think it's the best nerve-wracking horror scene. But I also like all the Scream cold opens, and this one is no exception. So I'd probably say that over the cop car scene is my favorite moment. But I do like a lot of the scenes. And my favorite line, well, I love the entire film class sequels discussion. I have to say that first of all, that was very close. But the one line that stuck out to me because I didn't remember it and it really made me laugh. It's so simple, but it's just at the start of the movie when Maureen gets handed the Scream killer costume and turns it to camera and just goes, "And it's white." I don't know why that made me laugh, but it just really did. So what about you then, Kevin? Do you have a favorite character in this?
Yeah. So I have my answer. I'll give a quick shout out to somebody who we didn't talk about at all, but I would put as like right behind my number one favorite character. My second favorite character is Joel, Gail's cameraman.
Yes.
He had so many great moments in there that I love seeing him. But I would say my number one is Mickey. I thought he was a great villain when he needed to be, but I thought he was really fun in the first half of the movie. So yeah, I would go with Mickey as my number one. I really think Timothy Olyphant goes very well in this universe.
Definitely. Did you have a favorite moment or scene, Kevin, in the film?
Yeah, I would say favorite moment. I mean, it's probably the most iconic moment at this point, but I think my favorite scene and moments are the that coffee shop conversation between Dewey and Randy. Especially, I love the moment there where Randy's like, "Well, if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect," and he goes, "True. Let's move on."
Point.
I thought that was a fun moment.
Yeah.
And then what was the last one? Favorite line?
What's your favorite line, if you can think of one?
I can. And it's a moment that actually was quite scary to me because I didn't remember it at all. Okay. I would say my favorite line, because of the scare it leads to, is when Gail and Dewey are in the footage room in the theater. And they're reviewing like the footage, seeing if they can catch the killer. But then it cuts to the killer's POV and Gail's line of "That's not my footage."
Yeah.
And then the reveal that Ghostface is up like in the booth and filming them.
Yeah.
So I think "That's not my footage." I thought she delivered really, really well and sent a chill down my spine.
that is such a great film nerd moment as well, because talk about the film reflecting on itself and eating itself when they're literally watching scenes from earlier in the film and then watching the killer's POV of watching them, which is the same as us, the audience. And I could write essays just about that scene and what it's trying to say, but it would probably bore the crap out of most of our audience, so I won't go much further into it. So yeah, cool. So all that remains then is for us to give our conclusion and our scores as we do out of 5 stars. That's how we do things. And again, sorry, Kevin, for not giving you advance warning.
No, you're good. You're good. I can do this on the fly.
Cool. Mine are usually quite thought out and scripted, unfortunately, and this is no exception, and it's quite long. So I'll save it, and I'll come to you first, Toby. Do you have a conclusion and a score out of 5 for me?
Yeah, I think what I think makes this movie worse than the first Scream one is not necessarily that it did anything major wrong, but more that it just didn't do stuff the first one did. I think that's mainly my point, because I think it's interesting how many reviews or like people mentioned like in the audience interaction section that this one was so much more scary and gory, and I was like, and I don't see it. Like, it reaches a point where I'm thinking, did I watch a different version? Did I misclick somewhere? What is happening?
Yes. You watched the PG version with all of the violence and scares good, clearly. No, I'm sure you didn't. I think it's one of those things we've become more and more desensitized. I mean, this is 30 years old now, depressingly. So you've probably seen a lot worse, is the point.
Yeah, but I think the first one is actually worse.
Oh, okay, fair.
Maybe I'm just remembering the first one differently, but I thought the first one was so bloody at point. Not bloody, but like, like I think. Isn't there like in the house scene so much blood everywhere?
Not really.
Shooting people in the face and everything.
No.
No.
There's a lot. There's the scenes of Billy and Stu stabbing each other to try and make it look like they were innocent victims and whatever, which gets a little bit weird and bloody. But I don't know. Maybe your memories. Maybe because it was original and fresh, you're remembering it as way gorier and scarier than it was. Because I don't think it's especially so. To be honest, no.
I don't know. I don't know what is going on.
Well, some people disagree with you, some agree, but yeah. So anyway, you just don't think it's as good as the original for the most part, though, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think the mystery of it is, and not necessarily that the mystery is worsely made. It's more that the mystery in the first one was more gripping in a way, and I thought the implications of who it was in the first one were more scary and more sinister than in the second one, where it's just like, oh, it's the mom out for revenge. It's like, oh, okay, and this crazy dude, like, like I don't know. I thought the first one being so close and what made it more scary in the reveal, but I obviously know why they just not did do that again. Like, I understand, but it also made it worse. So I can understand why, but it also had a side effect of not being as effective, in my opinion. And also about the mystery, I thought the first one had such a good cast of characters. Like even the ones we don't see again, like obviously the ones that we see again, they are still good in the second movie mostly. So, but even the ones we don't see again from the first one are a lot better cast of characters than in the second one. I feel like I don't know. I didn't really like most of the new characters. Like, I didn't dislike them, but they didn't stand out to me in a major way.
Yeah, that's something you have in common with a lot of the audience response and the critics, I think, because a lot of them said the same. I disagree, but I can't say that you're wrong if a lot of people agree with you, so okay.
Yeah. I think that's my verdict.
Cool. And what's your score out of 5 stars, though?
Oh, you already know this one because I posted it.
I know.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. So, awesome. Thanks for that, Toby. That's understandable. I think it's the same as a lot of critics and people would give it, and I can't be too mad at you. It's not a complete 1 out of 5 horrible experience.
No,
I have to say, I would
horrible.
really be fascinated to hear your thoughts and opinions on the other Scream movies. So if you ever watch them, please let me know, because I really want to hear what you think. Related to some of the things you said about this, I'd love to know, especially Scream 3 next. I really want to know what you make of it, because some of the things I don't like, I get the feeling you will like when it comes to that movie, but we'll see.
Well, at least this movie had something good. It did bring me back to interest into watching the rest of the Scream movie. I don't know why I didn't after I watched the first one.
Well, only a year ago.
Yeah, but
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to watch the other ones at some point, hopefully.
Awesome.
I don't know.
It's one of those franchises I love. As soon as I'd watched the second one, I was like, I want to carry on now. I want to just go and watch Scream 3 straight away, but I don't have time. So, yeah, cool. Kevin, are you happy to give us your conclusion and just score out of 5 stars? And then we'll end with my long film write-up.
Sure. So my sort of wrap up on this is, like I said, not my favorite Scream movie by a long shot, but still just a great movie from a great franchise. And the thing is, every Scream movie to me has its own unique voice. They're all part of the franchise, but they all feel so different from one another because they're commenting on the times, they're commenting on themselves and where they are in the story. They're commenting on not just the horror genre, but film in general and where film's at that point. So they're so unique in their voice each time. And that's what I love so much about this franchise. And I think this one, even if you're not a horror fan, if you're a fan of just film and talking about sequels and things like that, there's a lot that you can gain from watching this movie and appreciate with the dialogue. And I think the characters are still here that we all know and love. And I think it has some great scares and some funny moments. So I still really enjoy this one. I can't wait to now I want to watch the rest of the franchise, again, hey, work, sorry, I started watching Scream 2 and now I need to take a day off and just watch all 6 films. But I know I can't do that. But yeah, I really like Scream 2 a lot. And I actually appreciate it more having rewatched it. So thank you for that, Mike, and the opportunity to do so.
That's part of why we're here. So
yeah.
There you go.
And so I like it a lot. I do think its biggest flaws come from the pacing and maybe not being as solid of a narrative, but those aren't ruinous to me. So I would say this is a very strong 4 out of 5 for me.
Perfect. My conclusion is I really dig this film. It was one of my earliest horror obsessions, coming straight off my first love of the original, and I still remember how impressed I was the first time I saw it, that it wasn't an inferior sequel or dip in quality. It felt completely worthy of standing side by side with its predecessor. I had no idea at the time about the behind-the-scenes issues with script leaks and spoiler-dodging rewrites, and honestly, I can speak from experience when I say that it didn't show in the final film for me, which is impressive within itself. Maybe nostalgia plays a part, but I've built up so many great memories with this movie over the last 30 years. Whisper it. It's one I can quote along with, which probably says everything about my affection for Kevin Williamson's tight, referential, clever, and pacey script. The zippy 90s dialogue and meta humor still really pop, though I'll admit I'm a film student geek who grew up in the 90s, so I'm absolutely the target audience. The direction is excellent too. What can you say about Wes Craven except he's a master? He makes it look effortless, but the style and substance are completely there, and that cop car scene is genuinely tense. For me, scarier than anything in the first film. The main cast build up a fair bit of goodwill from recognition, but they mostly do decent work, with Campbell coming off strongest. However, performers like Geller, Schreiber, Oliphant, Metcalf, and even brief cameos from DeRossi, Pinkett, Epps, Gayhart, and Jackson absolutely steal scenes and elevate the movie. I also love how the film expands the meta concept, not just by featuring a movie within the movie, but by commenting on sequels themselves, the Black experience in horror, and the wider cultural obsession with violence, media blame, and criminal celebrity. I know the film has its detractors, and that's fair, but for me, the things that land, emotionally, stylistically, and intellectually, outweigh any flaws. It's a sequel that understands exactly what it is, what it's doing, and why it exists. And mainly, I just have a great time geeking out at it and with it. And I actually give it 5 out of 5, I have to say. which might be controversial now off the back of you guys. So yeah, I've always thought I could barely separate Scream and Scream 2. They're of a kind for me. They're very much both 5-star movies, whether you agree or not. That's just my opinion on that. And like I said, perhaps nostalgia goggles, we can put it down to. I'm not sure. So yeah, with that out of the way, then we combine our 3 scores and divide by the 3 of us here to give us a final score, which is pretty solid and rounded up. So yeah, with 3, 4, and 5, not hard to work out the final score for the podcast for Scream 2 is a solid 4 out of 5, which I can't be mad at. I'm pretty happy with that. So Kevin, you called it bang on. Your score of 4 out of 5 turns out to be exactly right. So yeah, awesome.
That's great.
And and so did you have fun with us, Kevin?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought this was awesome. Thank you guys for having me on. I hope we can do this again. And we got to flip the script now. We gotta do our own rewrite and have you on our show now.
Oh, anytime. You just say the word, and if I can fit it in, I'll happily do so. And I love talking about horror, but I don't have any really down for the rest of this year, apart from the classic Frankensteins, I think, at Halloween. But
oh man, you wanna like shuffle schedules around? That's all I got on my radar with what we do on our show.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So, but no, thanks for coming on and giving your horror expertise. I genuinely could have talked about it for hours, as you can probably tell, and we didn't touch on so much, but we only have a couple of hours of podcast here. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, that's great, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on. I'm glad we finally got to do this, and it's a great way to start off the year meeting not just horror fans, but also just film appreciation people.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And you have my Discord details and everything, so get in touch anytime if you wanted to geek out over movies. And as I said, I will we give your details up top, but I will, if you pass them on, leave them in the episode description to point people towards your podcast, because all film podcasts are all great, and a rising tide raises all ships, as they say. So do go and check that out, viewers and listeners, if you haven't got a chance, especially if you're horror fans. I get the feeling it's going to be a way more focused on horror than we tend to get at times, and that's not a bad thing, because I do love a bit of horror. So
well, thank you, sir. And then Toby, pleasure to meet you. I hope to hear more about your journey through the Scream movies. I hope you'll continue, because I'm interested to see where your thoughts go in the future sequels as well.
We from the podcast have a Discord, so I always post them in there. So I guess Mike can just forward them to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to invite you to the Discord if you want to be a part of it, Kevin, because it's just basically random chat about anything. And we do have a film channel in there, Movies General, that we can talk about if we're watching anything.
Oh, great.
So, yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Of course, we are all on Letterboxd as well, myself and Toby, which I'll send you the links to those.
Oh yeah, but I don't post reviews on Letterboxd. Too lazy
you post your score, but not a review. But I always write big ass reviews on.
Yeah, see, I know. Now I got to jump in there. You guys got to educate me on that. Somebody, a friend of mine, recently asked me if I had used Letterboxd, and I have not yet. So I need to get into that game.
Once you start, it's just, it's addictive. Constantly making lists and writing reviews of everything I see and everything. So, yeah.
That's great.
Again, all those details will be in the app description. Did you have anything you wanted to plug, Toby? Any social medias or anything?
I mean, still only my Blue Sky. I don't have anything else.
And that's Dark Sonic at Blue Sky, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I'm not sure what our schedule is at the moment, because things are a little bit in flux with the podcast. So I can't tell you what's coming next, because I'm not 100% sure. But as I say, this will be going out around the time of Scream 7. It's our first Silver Screen proper, but by now you will have had Silver Screen Cult and Classics, which are also still coming, 1 episode per month. So stay tuned to the channel for those. And hopefully we can get some more horror on the schedule, because there's a surprising lack at the moment. And I have to plug as well our sister channel, Hit or Miss 2 Trek, which is just about to launch into a series of Doctor Who reviews talking about Cybermen episodes. And you'll no doubt hear Toby on at least a couple of those as well. So, because we are all-purpose nerds. And stay tuned to both of those channels. And again, you can always check out our social medias, which will be in the episode description or in the outro at the end. You can check out our merch store now on TeePublic. Or, if you want to be a channel member, you can subscribe for as little as $2.99 a month and get extended episodes, bonus emojis, and various little things like that. So do join us again for all of that. And in the meantime, what's my favourite scary movie? Showgirls. Absolutely frightening. Good night.
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Mike Wilson. Follow us on social media, our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Link to all of these places can be found via the link tree listed in this episode's description. This podcast is a Media Matters original production, created, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. We'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, and share us around like a beloved old video cassette. We hope to see you next time for more movie magic. Until then, remember, life moves pretty fast, so stop and watch a movie now and then.